It happens to be a story of an older preacher who was talking to a young preacher who hadn't had as much experience, and he said to him, you know, sometimes on Sunday morning they begin to nod off. And he says, I found a way to wake them up. He says, right in my sermon, when I see them beginning to doze, I say, last night I held in my arms a woman who was the wife of another man. And he said, that wakes them up. And he says, then when they look at me startled, I say, it was my dear mother. Well, the young preacher took that to heart, and a few weeks later, sure enough, there, some of them were dozing off. So he remembered what had been told him, and he said, last night I held in my arms a woman who was the wife of another man. And they all looked at him, and everyone was awake. And he says, I can't remember who it was. The Soviet peoples themselves, even though there's been some change, still tell stories and joke about their plight. I heard one about a fellow who went to the KGB to report that he lost his parrot. The KGB asked him why he was bothering them. Why didn't he just report it to the local police? Well, he answered, I just want you to know that I don't agree with a thing that parrot has to say. With you, an evangelical minister and a politician arrived at Heaven's Gate one day together. And St. Peter, after doing all the necessary formalities, took them in hand to show them where their quarters would be. And he took them to a small single room with a bed, a chair, and a table, and said this was for the clergyman. And the politician was a little worried about what might be in store for him. And he couldn't believe it then when St. Peter stopped in front of a beautiful mansion with lovely grounds, many servants, and told him that these would be his quarters. And he couldn't help but ask. He said, but wait, there's something wrong. How do I get this mansion while that good and holy man only gets a single room? And St. Peter said, you have to understand how things are up here. We got thousands and thousands of clergy. You're the first politician who ever made it. This one concerns a fellow who was in a small automobile accident, one of those fender bender types, and he got out, and the other fellow got out of his car, and neither one of them were hurt. But the other fellow said, hey, you look a little shaken up. Wait a minute here. And he went back to his car, got a bottle, and handed it to him and said, take a drink of this. It'll settle you down. And so the man did, and he said, oh, come on, take another one. I know you're shaken up. And he did, and 3 or 4 drinks later, the fellow said, well, wait a minute here, I don't want to drink at all. You have a drink. And he said, no, I'll just stand here and wait for the police to get here. You know, I've been around a while myself. One of my favorite quotations about age comes from Thomas Jefferson. He said that we should never judge a president by his age, only by his work. And ever since he told me that, I've stopped worrying. Just show you how youthful I am, I intend to campaign in all 13 states. There's a fellow that was on his way to a mountain resort, and a policeman stopped him and said, did you know that you're driving without taillights? And the driver hopped out of the car. He was so badly shaken that the officer took pity on him and said, well, now, wait a minute, calm down. It's not that serious an infraction. The fellow said, it may not mean much to you, but to me it means I've lost my trailer, a wife, and 4 kids. You know, there's a 10-year delay in the Soviet Union of delivery of an automobile. And only 1 out of 7 families in the Soviet Union own automobiles. There's a 10-year wait. And you go through quite a process when you're ready to buy, and then you put up the money in advance. And this happened to a fellow, and this is their story that they tell, this joke. That this man, he laid down his money, and then the fellow that was in charge said to him, okay, come back in 10 years and get your car. And he said, morning or afternoon? And the fellow behind the counter said, well, 10 years from now, what difference does it make? And he said, well, the plumber's coming in the morning. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here with you sharing the spirit and the festivities of St. Patrick's Day. The blessed St. Patrick, we are told, died on this day in the year of our Lord, 461. And leave it to the Irish to be carrying on a wake for 1,500 years.